Hi everyone, it's Heather Davis and my husband's here, and
Hello.
I just started this nutrition class, and I skipped ahead to chapter 19 and read the food biotechnology portion, and it almost brought me to tears. And so I'm going to share with my husband some of the things that it says, and you know that I've got something to say about this stuff in response. And see what he has to say. I don't know. Maybe he's going to think I shouldn't be brought to tears, or maybe you will. But I just want to read a little bit of this to you. Food biotechnology. Advances in food biotechnology promise just about everything, from the frivolous, tear-free onion to the profound, hunger-free world. Biotechnology has produced leaner meats, longer shelf lives, better nutrient composition, and greater crop yields grown with fewer pesticides. Wow, really? That's not what I've heard. What do you think, honey, about that?
Well, I think that if you're gonna be getting all these benefits, there's got to be some take somewhere. You know what I mean? You can't just can't receive and receive and receive and not expect to have some other kind of consequence.
Yeah, well, I just think that it's ironic because from what I understand, the nutrient composition, sometimes it's bioengineered to have more of one nutrient in it, but generally speaking, all the other nutrients are lacking in GMOs because of that take thing that you're talking about.
Right. I mean, think about it. They're talking about a tear-free onion in there. The sulfur in the onion is probably something that your body needs, especially for things like hair. I know sulfur is used in your hair.
So it goes back and it talks. It does. It calls it somewhere in here. It says point counterpoint, and they really try. I mean, they make quite an effort to present both sides of the story. And anyways, I want to find the part where they basically say that the people against GMOs are, religious, non-scientific fanatics. But I'll get to that in a minute. Let's go over the promises of genetic engineering. And this is important for people who are against this to understand what the people that are for it are really fighting for. Like some people that are for it, and what the ideas of it came out of. Like, if we're going to get people to understand that we don't like this, we have to basically prove to them that these goals that they had just aren't happening. And if those goals are really happening, then maybe that's a good thing, except for the story that I found today on this contaminated mosaic virus. And it's not even a contamination. It supposedly is intentionally put in there because it's part of the genetic engineering process. And I found a great article on that, and it's right here. If you want to take a look at it, I'll put the link below. But anyway, back to my nutrition book. Let's read what these positive promises of genetic engineering are. For centuries, farmers have been selectively breeding plants and animals to shape the characteristics of their crops and livestock. For centuries, they've been doing this. Okay. They've created prettier flowers, hardier vegetables, leaner animals. Consider the success of selectively breeding corn. Now, this is a real, actual example, and it's a good example. Selective breeding took corn from this to what it is today. But that didn't involve a gene gun. It didn't involve a Terminator gene. It didn't involve dangerous viruses that can cross over to humans. It involved farmers basically just picking the best seeds and replanting them because, oh, wait, they weren't going to be at a threat of being sued by Monsanto for replanting their seeds.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they could make better corn.
You're getting off on a diatribe. The point is that the...
But that's not genetic engineering. That's selective breeding, and they're trying to confuse people here.
Well, of course they're trying to confuse people.
So let's see what else they're trying to front on. Okay. So anyway, it talks about this, the Mexican corn. And such genetic improvements with the use of irrigation, fertilizers, and pesticides were responsible for more than half of the increases in U.S. crop yields in the 20th century. Now, of course, the soil is dead, and we won't be able to use it at all, supposedly, according to some research, in the next 40 years. But hey, we got yields of crops that are full of less nutrients. But let's just tout the food and all the obesity as being a wonderful thing that's being patented. Farmers still use selective breeding, but now, in the 21st century, advances in genetic engineering have brought rapid and dramatic changes to agriculture and food production. Okay, here we go. Here's an example. I'm just going to go over the highlights, okay? Improved nutrient composition. So here's where they claim that the nutrients have more, more nutrients like this cauliflower with all this beta carotene. But back to the argument of you saying, something's got to give. Oh, they're talking about cloned animals. So here's where you talk about mass, possible drugging of the mass population. For example, a cow cloned with the genetic equipment to make a vaccine in its milk could provide both nourishment and immunization to a whole village of people now left unprotected because they lack food and medical help. That's right, folks. They have a vaccine deficiency, and GMO milk can help them with that. Whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, it doesn't officially clarify that here. Apparently there are eggs that treat MS, bananas and potatoes to make hepatitis vaccines, tobacco leaves to make AIDS drugs. So there you have it, folks. That's disturbing. Let's see. Genetically altering hydroponic tomato plants. They can make a vaccine with that. So food and drugs are literally combining now. And that scares me because I want to know if I'm taking a drug. And I think I have a religiously fanatic right to know if I'm taking a drug. And so I have a problem with that. Genetically assisted agriculture. Now this is ironic. They talk about farmers increasing yields, but they don't mention in India the farmers that commit suicide because their cotton failed at the 3rd year because the soil was depleted. And you can watch Genetic Roulette and read Seeds of Deception and learn about that. But this book doesn't mention that. It does mention that soybeans are mostly genetic engineered to withstand a potent herbicide, but they don't mention that that herbicide that's getting sprayed on those soybeans causes cancer and miscarriage and doesn't biodegrade as quickly as Monsanto claimed it does. So that means that it, they've already lost a suit in that, and that's not mentioned in this book. So basically, as a result, farmers can spray whole fields with it and kill the weeds without harming the soybeans. But I guess it doesn't matter what happens to the people. Here, let's see. What else? Plant pesticides, which I'm sure it's kind of like the BT corn. Apparently, corn, broccoli, and potatoes have received a gene that produces a protein. So I've never heard of the broccoli and potatoes, but here is some new information, folks. Yellow squash, I've heard of that. Potatoes can now produce a beetle-killing toxin in their leaves.
And here's an article from the Huffington Post, a recent study showing that GMO crops get sprayed with more pesticides. But I just want to show you what this book says in contrast.
Here we go. Plants may be given special molecules to help them grow in polluted soil. So, now the book is not mentioning the specific patent on the aluminum-resistant soil. And you have to ask yourself, where is the aluminum coming from? And if you want to know about that, then you should watch a movie called The Great Culling, and Eden Cultures. We donated to the production of that film, so you can see my business's name proudly in the credits there, and you can learn about why there might be more aluminum in the soil. But it's ironic to me that that's what the patent is on, but this book doesn't mention that. It doesn't mention the pollution for the aluminum specifically, although that is specifically what's going on. So, farmers may produce bumper crops of food on fewer acres of land with less loss of water and topsoil far less use of toxic pesticides. So they're thinking that per acre, because you're growing on less acres, you're going to have to use less pesticides, but they don't understand the basic of plant ecology, that when you cram them in that close together, you're going to deplete the soil, and then it's going to be completely useless later. But this isn't an ecology class. This is a nutrition class, and I do like this class, but I just want you to see the rest of the book is pretty cool, but this part just upset me. I literally was coming to tears. And then it says, most consumers know little about biotechnology or the extent to which their foods contain GM foods. Some consumers have concerns about what they call frankenfoods. They're not saying that it's scientists, but believe it or not, there are a lot of scientists that do oppose it. There are scientists that are prescribing non-GMO diets and all kinds of things. Those who oppose it fear for the safety of a world where genetic tampering produces effects that are not yet fully understood. Well, that's fair. They suspect the food industry may be driven by potential profits. Did not predict ultimate outcomes. Don't want to eat a science experiment. Genetics are left to nature, And these are the potential problems. So to be fair, they included this. Disruption of natural ecosystems. New, genetically unique organisms that have no natural place could escape into the environment and reproduce, like the salmon. Okay? Or what about the bees that are dying? The bees that are dying. Introduction of diseases like this mosaic virus. That's intentionally included because it's part of the GMO process. Newly created viruses may mutate to cause deadly diseases, may attack plants, animals, or human beings. GM bacteria may develop resistance to antibiotics. Well, that's what some of this GM stuff is. It's supposed to be resistant to these all kinds of weird things. Introduction of allergens and toxins. Thank you for including this, the people that made this book, because I'm allergic to corn, and all my crazy symptoms started in 1996. Like I had nodular acne when I was a teenager, and allergies out the wazoo, and autoimmune symptoms, and I really believe it's the corn, and it took me a long time to figure out I was allergic to corn. GM crops may contain new substances that have consequences such as allergies. Oh wait, here's a crazy possibility. Creation of biological weapons. I just saw an episode of Alias about that. But it was dispersed through the water. Crazy stuff. But it's in this book, and it's consumers that believe this, not scientists. See, that's the thing that I don't appreciate about this book. They're not saying that it's scientists. They're saying, oh, it's just the consumers. And they're just fearful. But I've, been on forums and I've read articles written by scientists, doctors, nutritionists, and they are the ones fearing this, not the consumers. Ethical dilemmas. How many human genes does an organism have to contain before it's considered human? How many human genes would a green pepper have to contain before one would have qualms about eating it? Well, for me personally, I don't want any human genes in it. I will not drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi. I just can't. I'm not saying they have human genes in them, but they create their flavorings. One of them does, by testing them on, cells from aborted fetal tissue. I can't bring myself to drink that. I just can't. Proponents respond that evidence does not justify these concerns. Well, you know what, folks? That's why I'm going to do a research thesis on this, and I'm going to find out for myself, and I will report the truth. I will report the truth, and I'm obviously biased, so I'm going to document as much as I can to prove whatever happens, and whatever happens, that's it. It happens. Opponents counter that the lack of evidence showing harm does not provide evidence showing safety. Well, thank you. Defending against hunger. Grains that resist pests and diseases have increased yield. I haven't heard about that. It's weird. I haven't heard about that. This wheat. I've heard about Mexico getting upset about their corn being devastated and contaminated, but I haven't heard about that, and honestly. And in India, I didn't hear about increased wheat production. What I heard about was farmers committing suicide, so maybe I'm just totally wrong. Pakistan, oh, they're doing great, All these countries, really, are they doing that much better right now? How are they doing with their GMO food? And the FDA, here we are, has taken a position that they are not substantially different. And this is cloning too. Okay? After all, most foods have been genetically altered by selective breeding. Selective breeding is different, and this is how it's different. When you mix two things with, selective breeding, like cloning a plant or taking a clipping or hybridizing two plants, nature decides if that offspring, grows and whether or not that offspring produces offspring. And there's a natural selection there. When you're injecting it with a gene gun, you're changing that, that gene codes for a protein, and they might know what protein it codes for, but they don't know all the proteins it codes for. And when that gene gets next to other genes, it's going to affect those genes and turn them on and off, because they're literally blasting it into a test tube with a gun. It's very crude. Wow, I was brought to tears. So there's just the highlights, point, counterpoint, ethical, moral, imperfect technology, environmental concerns, genetic pollution, profit motive, unproven safety. Those are all the arguments against it, and then the arguments in support, advanced technology, environmental protection, which is ironic that I didn't, that just seems ridiculous to me. It's not environmental protection. It's engineering stuff so that it can survive our environmental destruction. That's what that is. Genetic improvements, genetic side effects are more likely to benefit the environment than to harm it. Where does that come from? There's not even a source listed. Who decided that? Crop resistant, we want it to be resistant. We want it to be resistant to those pesticides that can spray more. Conservation? See, that's not what happens, folks. What happens is they spray more because they can. That's what happens, okay? And it's not reduced pesticides on foods. Now the pesticide is growing in your food. So these just, look, I'm obviously biased. I'll see if I'll flash on the references here, but I think this is a crock. It brought me to tears. It made me make the ultimate decision that I don't want to pursue a registered dietitian, coordinated program in dietetics. I think that I would get fired just as quick as I did from the physical therapy clinic, but it did make me decide to email the director about doing a thesis, a rat study, to study GMOs, and with this institution, support me on that. And I got a positive response. So I'm going to go that route, and it's completely online, and that works for our homesteading dreams and my homeschooling dreams. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go with it, and I'm really excited about it, and I hope that you guys stick with me, because you're going to get a lot of information on GMOs. And also, I just bought this book, and it's funny to see these next to each other, this the mainstream and the offbeat. But I just got this, You Can Farm, Entrepreneur's Guide to Start and Succeed in a Farming Enterprise by Joel Salatin, and I'm going to see what he's got to say. But we want to farm, and we want to sell stuff from our farm, and we want to get the word out about how farming can improve your life, and processed food is probably just never, ever going to be as good as the real thing. Thanks, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.